We're out here in the field and we're going to talk about shooting fundamentals. And before we get into the trigger control, breathing control, and follow through, I want to talk about the main fundamentals. One of the important ones is the sight picture. You want to make sure that that scope is set up perfect for the shooter. You don't get no shadowing, no half mooning or anything in your scope. You want to make sure it's all set, make sure the parallax is perfect, make sure everything is set up in the scope or with the scope for the shooter. In order for me to set up a sight alignment to get a good sight picture, you have to adjust your scope to the shooter. And the way I do it is I'll get behind a rifle. And I'll get in a position that's comfortable for me, and I'll get behind a rifle and put my head straight down on my cheek rest. I'll close my eyes, get in a position, and I'll open my eyes, and I'll make sure that I see a full sight picture inside the scope. I don't want to see any shadowing or any kind of half mooning inside the scope. Most modern high magnification scopes, they have a parallax and a focus adjustment on the left side of your scope. And the way to take that parallax adjustment out, or make sure you're shooting parallax free at a target, is you get on the rifle and you look at a target you're going to shoot, and you adjust the parallax, and then you move your head right and left so slightly. And if the crosshair does not move on the target, then you're shooting with parallax adjusted. We talked about how to set up your scope properly to the shooter. Now I want to talk about how to get behind your rifle with a proper body position, so you can work on breathing, trigger control, recoil management, and follow through. First of all, I get on my knees and I make sure I'm straight behind the rifle. And then I just come down, straight down on the rifle. I pick up a rifle, so slightly pull it in my shoulder. I make sure that my elbows are squared. None of the elbows are in front of the other elbow. I just form a square line and I come down straight on the rifle. The other element of proper shooting position is creating a white base with your feet, and make sure your feet are flat on the ground, and make sure you pay attention and your spine is parallel to the rifle. Now that I'm behind my rifle and I got proper position and I got sight picture, I can concentrate on breathing control. Before I take a shot, I take 2 deep breaths and I pull the trigger or squeeze the trigger at the bottom of my breathing cycle. It's where I don't have to use any muscle to hold air in or out. I squeeze that trigger. You want to use the pad of your finger and you place that on your trigger, like so. You don't want to be wrapped around the trigger. You don't want to be on the other side of the trigger. You want to be on the center of the trigger with the pad of the finger. So when you apply any pressure on that trigger, you want to pull straight back with the inline of the rifle. It's very important. Go ahead and practice dry fire that. It's going to help you. Okay. I'll demonstrate. Close the bolt, you place your finger, you pat your finger on the trigger, and you pull straight back. We don't want to jerk on the trigger or yank on that trigger. We want it to be a controlled motion. I don't like the shot to surprise me. I want to know exactly when that shot's going to go off, because surprises create flinches. People blink and flinch when they get surprised. When you squeeze the trigger and the bullet's traveling down the barrel, it's going to create recoil. So we're going to talk about recoil management. Recoil management is how well a shooter manages the rifle coming back at him. There's many different ways of doing it. Loading bipod, some people don't like to load bipod. The name of the game is being consistent. You want to have a consistent pressure between your shoulder and the butt pad of your rifle. That's going to help with the follow through. The follow through is the shooter's ability to stay on the rifle. You want to stay on the trigger. You don't want to manipulate the bolt until you spot your shot, whether it's an impact or a miss, so you can follow another shot. The tip is, you want to make sure you stay on target while you're working that bolt. And another tip is, make sure your hand stays on that bolt when you work it. When I do my dry fire practice, I shoot with both eyes open. I practice manipulating the bolt and the trigger. And I make sure I don't forget all the other fundamentals of shooting when I dry fire. To sum up the fundamental of marksmanship, don't forget sight picture, breathing control, trigger control, recoil management, and follow through. I suggest that you start practice each individual of those fundamentals individually and slow as you speed it up, and you practice it so much to where it becomes your muscle memory. Precision rifle shooting was always my passion since I was a child. I started shooting air rifles, and what intrigued me is that accurate precision fire from a rifle. Right now I compete in the major matches all over the country. I shoot a lot of major matches locally, and after 3 or 4 years of experience, I feel that I've gained some experience where I can share with a shooter and help him be more confident in the field. I wanted to show you my match rifle that I use for all the precision rifle matches that I go to. It's a bolt action, and it's magazine fed, and it's got a long range optics on it. I wanted to talk about some of the components that my rifle is made out of. First thing, I use a Holland muzzle brake just to tame that recoil, make sure you'll be able to stay on targets and spot your hits. I use a Benchmark 3-groove barrel. It's cut at 25 inches or finished at 25 inches, and it's an MTU profile just to give me that little more weight on that rifle. All that is screwed in the Defiance action. It's a one-piece bolt action, very strong action. It's very smooth. I can run it very efficient. I use KRG chassis. The reason why I use KRG chassis, it offers me a toolless adjustment. I can adjust everything on the fly, depending on what stage I'm shooting. Everything adjusted, no tools needed. And I use 8W magazine. On the bottom of my rifle, I have a couple of rails for extra accessories, extra bipods if I need them. And I use a Weebad pad to minimize that bounce when I shoot off of hard surfaces. On top of my rifle, I have an ER-25 long-range US optic scope. It offers me a huge field of view. It's very clear. The adjustments are very true and very fast. I can run that E-rack knob very fast and efficient. US Optics offers many different reticles. What I like to use is called Gen 2 XR. It offers me very fast and efficient holdover. I can hold over with that reticle, no problem, for wind and elevation. My rifle sits on top of a Atlas bipod. Very quick adjustable, very efficient. I use AW magazines. In and out very easy. They come out by themselves. Another thing I use is a 2-round holder made by Short Action Precision. In some of those stages where you need 12 rounds or you need an extra round, you can just take it out and put it in your chamber and fire away. For the trigger, I use Calvin Elite. It's set at 1.25 pounds, offers a very clean break, no creeps. It's always a consistent 1.25 pound break, and that's why I like to use it. The last thing I wanted to show you is this accessory rail on the bottom of my rifle and what I use it for. If you go to a stage where you have to take a couple shots prone and then you have to get elevated and shoot from an elevated position, this offers you the ability to adjust another bipod and extend it out and let's say you shot from a prone position and then you have to get elevated, you just use that second tripod or bipod to get elevated and take a shot. Today I wanted to share with you what I take to a match, how I prepare in the match, and what ultimately I put in my backpack before I go to a match. The backpack that I use is called G3 Phantom, made by Eberlestock. The reason why I like this backpack is because it offers me long pockets on the sides, and I could fit all my gear, tripods, bipods, and it offers me a lot of room on the inside of the backpack with a little shelf in between. Another important piece of gear that I take to a match with me is the tripod made by Manfrotto and the hog saddle. What that does is allows you to make a shot if you have to get up over an obstacle. There are a few adjustments that I wanted to show you on this setup. One of them is this: you can clamp your rifle and tighten it up to get a little more steady. There's this pistol grip that allows you to aim your rifle at different targets. You can adjust the stem to be able to go up and down. You can also adjust the tripod if you need to get up standing or sitting. This is a Harris Model 25 swivel bipod. I don't go to a match without this piece of gear. It offers me so much flexibility. Whether I want to take a prone shot, you can do that. And just with minimal time, I can go ahead and adjust it for an elevated shot. I also carry a spare bipod. It's made by Atlas. Very sturdy, good quality. Talking about support of your rifle, I wanted to show you some of the bags that I use to make shots. I use a pump pillow and a rear bag support. The latest bag is this Reezer bag that I use for barricades and over any obstacles. It's a good bag, it gives me a good rifle support. Carry a pair of binoculars to spot targets and get locations of all the targets. It's a very important piece of gear. There is a benefit of using the rangefinder that offers the ballistic calculations for your target. I don't use it as a main solution, but I use it as a backup, and it's good to compare. And it also saves me time on some of those stages where you have to range under time. You just range the target and it gives you a solution. I wanted to show you the way I carry my ammo to the matches. It's a ammo binder made by Sage Flats. Fits 40 rounds. Part of my gear selection is I take a wrist coach with me. I use Sunrise Tactical. It offers me a couple of pages. Comes with a grease pan. You can write important information on your wrist, and it's very easy accessible. I also take a sling with me. It helps me shoot from barricades, improvised position. It's got some quick detach. I use it for a couple of reasons. Is because it helps you carry a rifle between stages. You can also offer some stability if you're going to shoot some positional stages. Save your hearing, you got to take some ear pro. I also take a very important piece of gear that attaches to my scope. It's a sunshade. In case you get into bad weather, a lot of rain, this will save your glass and keep your glass dry and clean. I take this little bag with me to every match. It attaches to the bottom of your rifle via Velcro. It helps you stabilize, and it helps minimize that bounce on the rifle while you take a shot. Made by Weebad. I carry a couple extra magazines in case you have a malfunction, and you can just grab another magazine, reload, and keep going. I also take some tools with me in case I have some kind of malfunction, and I can do a field quick fix. Some brushes, some patches. I also have a tool to take my bolt apart, extra bolt handles. And I have a tab gear, scope kit, anything I need to tighten my action, all in here. All Allen sets, everything comes with me to every match. I take extra batteries with me for your ear pro, rangefinder, anything that needs batteries. You gotta have extra batteries with you to a match. I also take some lubricant to keep that bolt running nice and smooth. I bring a Mil-Dot Master to every match that I go to. What this little tool is going to help you do is find the range to a target if you know the target size. You will encounter some of the stages where you're not allowed to use electronics. This will help you find the range. Something to write on, some information, a little notebook. I want to show you what I carry in this top pocket of my backpack. Gear Pro is very important. I carry a pair of ESSs with me. It's some of the matches require them, so make sure you take some with you. This little item is called Barrel Cool. It's a pretty cool item. It serves two purposes. I bring it to every match I go to. It could serve as a chamber flag. You stick it in there, and you can also turn on the little fan in there, and it cools your barrel if you do encounter some hot weather conditions. Another tool that I use is a compass. Some of the matches will require you to locate your targets based on some of the compass settings. I use it very rare, but I did have to use it a few times. I also take a cleaning rod with me in case you have a case malfunction, case separation. You put it together and you're able to get that case out so you can continue with that match. This is a very small tool, something to keep your scope lenses and binocular lenses clean. Just cleans your lenses. Don't forget it. In order for you to make an accurate shot, you need to know environmental conditions. This little tool right here, made by Kestrel, it's 4000 model. It offers you all the information you need for your ballistic calculator. It offers humidity, temperature, and barometric pressure. Hi, my name is Gadarzi. Welcome to our precision rifle positional training. Today we're out in the field at Blue Ridge Rifle Range, and we're going to shoot from many different positions, natural terrain obstacles, and barricades. I'm going to show you how I would approach, plan, and make shots from many different positions. So for easier learning experience, we're going to divide every stage into 3 sections. There's going to be an introduction to the stage. Then it's going to be approach, how would I approach shooting the stage. It was going to be execution of the stage under time to simulate real match shooting conditions. So we're at this tire stage, which consists of quite a few tires. We have to make shots on targets, frequently changing positions from tire to tire. Let's talk about what goes into planning on this stage. So when I plan on shooting the stage, what I go through is I'll physically go up to the barricade and make sure that it's possible to make a shot. In this scenario, we got bottom tires. We got a natural obstacle of grass. I can't shoot from the bottom tires. I'll have to execute all my shots from the start and the middle tires. Also, I'll see what gear I need. The mag, if you need any bags, I'll make sure to have that with me before I go on the stage. And if I don't need a bipod or something else on the rifle, I'll just go ahead and take it off. Because when you frequently change positions, this thing's just going to get caught and eat up your time. Now we have to execute shots from the stage, so let's get it on. When I go into shooting the stage, I'll set my rifle, line it up with the target. When I get down to my knee, I'll bring the right knee up for my elbow support. I like a wider stance. If you use a narrow stance, you're going to get a right to left wobble. The more you can widen out, the better. I'll get on target. I want my camera guide to show this knee. The better position for the knee to be is straight down from the body, straight in line. You don't want to bring that knee forward and then use muscle to support yourself. If you just straighten it out straight under your body, it's just bone on the ground and it's very stable. During the execution of the stage, you want to be very efficient with your gear. For example, in this tire,
we could use another pillow to stabilize your rifle. As you go, you line up on target, you use a pump pillow to stabilize yourself. This gives you a very stable platform. You got a bag underneath your rifle. Some of the positions will not let you use the bag. For example, this tire, if you use a bag, the rifle is too high. It's not a good idea. So you want to be very, very efficient with your gear. In this tire, I would just set the rifle and use the pump pillow for my elbow support to make the shot. This also would make a very stable platform. Time starts now. So we're at the stage where you got a chain stretched in between two posts. This is one of my favorite stages, and this is what I practice on. You can see a rope. The use might be shooting out of a helicopter. They use ropes for support. If you're a hunter, you might use a rope between a couple of trees to shoot over tall grass. The difficulty of this stage is you're going to get a lot of bounce. You're never going to be as stable as if you go prone. So there's a couple of techniques that I use when I shoot off of something. I got a rope or a chain in between two posts. What gear can I use to stabilize myself? I got a couple of bags here. I got my mag ready to go. You cannot go prone because of the natural obstacle, grass. You can't see the target. So we're going to have to shoot off the chain. It's going to be bouncy. So my plan is to use a bag on top of the chain. I don't like to load or pull. We're just going to let that rifle sit on top of that chain when we're just going to stabilize it and shoot it. Let me tell you how I plan to shoot this stage and how I get in position. I'd set my rifle on the chain where it's nice and centered. This is going to be a good kneeling position. I'm going to go ahead and leave my bipod on for this one because I could use this just to grab onto my rifle and just keep it into my shoulder, and it'll help me with recoil management. This is going to be very bouncy during recoil. So this is what this position would look like. I want my camera guide to show you that you want your bottom end to be touching your foot. You don't want to use any muscle for support. Just go ahead and sit on your foot. That's going to give you a very nice, stable position. Another position you may encounter when shooting off ropes or chains is you may have to shoot from a bottom strung of a rope or a chain. In this position, I would use a bigger rear support bag. You can just set your rifle on the chain. You'd go prone. Use a bigger bag for support. What makes it difficult shooting off of a chain or a rope that's stretching between two poles is the bounce. After each shot, the rifle is going to bounce. It's the job of the shooter to manage that recoil so you can stay on target and see your impact or misses so you can correct. Last tip before we leave that stage, when you're shooting off of a chain or rope, loading into the rifle doesn't really work. If you push into the rifle, you're just going to create that much more up and down, a lot of vertical. You just want to set that rifle down and let it just balance itself. Use the left hand, grab the bipod, and just give it a little pull into your shoulder. So you want to be just like this. Time starts now. We're at this stage, it's called a moving platform. This would simulate shooting off of a boat. If you're in the military, you might have to engage a target from a moving boat or moving vehicle maybe. So it's just moving a lot. It's a very difficult stage. Let's talk about how we would approach engaging this. You don't really need a lot of gear for this stage. You just need some patience and a rear bag. When you get on it, it's gonna move, so you wanna get on it nice and slow. You don't wanna rattle this thing to where it's unstoppable. Let's execute it. When you get on this platform, just go ahead and be nice and slow. The less movement, the better. Get your rear support in there.
When you look through the reticle's just up and down, side to side. It's just wobbling all over the place. You want to settle down for a second. Let it just settle itself down. It's going to be more of a timing shot. When you're on target, you're going to pull the trigger. When you take a shot from a platform that's moving, and when you manipulate that bolt, I suggest that you just go a little slower than usual. Any little movement that you do makes that platform move even more. So be nice and smooth when you reload shot to shot.
Time starts now. Here we got a stage where you got 3 different levels. It'll simulate shooting off of a fence or fence posts or different elevations. And let's talk about how I would approach to shooting this. So on this stage, I would utilize a couple bags. One of the bags I would utilize to set underneath my rifle. If you shoot off of a metal or a hard surface, you're going to get a lot of bounds on the rifle. If you use a bag underneath your rifle, that's just going to give you that extra support, minimize that bounce. Also, when you transfer to the bottom, you can also use it. And for the bottom position, you can use that bag. And we'll use that bag to stabilize our body, putting the elbow in it. Let me show you how. So when we build a position shooting off 3 different levels, we'll need to make sure that we manage our gear top notch. We don't want bags falling over, bags falling where we can't reach them. We want to make sure we just do the best we can. This is how I would do it. We want to make sure in this position we lock our knees out. We make as wide of a stance as we need to get in the right elevation. We don't want to use muscle, bend our knees to stabilize. You're going to get fatigued and you're going to start being shaky. So lock your knees out, lean into the rifle. That makes a very good position. Second position, I'll just set the bag. It's going to be a kneeling position. Sit right on your foot, elbow on the knee. That makes it very nice and stable. Third position, set the bag down. We're just gonna have to lean to the side a bit. We could use this bag to stabilize our elbow. Makes it for a very stable shot. Sometimes the position will dictate your shooting location. And what would that require you to use your weak side to make a shot, as it's impossible to get strong side to make the shot. So you're going to use your support side. I would use a bag, and this is how I'd build that position. Same thing applies. Lock your knees out. You don't want to use any muscle. Lean into the rifle. Straight behind the gun. It actually makes it a very good, stable position. Time start now. If you're going to shoot any kind of match, PRS style matches, you're going to encounter this obstacle. It's a wire reel. it does make it a pretty challenging position to shoot off of. There's a couple of elements of instability that you're going to encounter. One of them is this thing wants to roll on you. It's not a very stable, it just wants to go forward or backwards. It's not a very big platform also. You only get a little bit of a rounded position to shoot off of. So your gun wants to, you don't really have a rear and support, front and rear support. The gun wants to tip on you. So it makes it pretty tough, challenging, but there's a couple of tips I can give you to make it easier on you. I would just use a bag. What that bag offers you is a little bigger platform to support your rifle. You don't want to support it off of a rounded reel. That does not offer a lot of stability. If you're a hunter, you could just throw your backpack on there. That backpack being a little bigger and longer would support your rifle a little better. This is how the position would look. I would use a pump pillow for my elbow and go ahead and lean your body into the wire reel, and that would stop that reel from rolling. You just make sure you got a good contact, and that way your position is solid. Time starts now. Here we got a stairs. We got to shoot from 3 different positions. What makes it real challenging is there's not a lot of room to put a bag underneath. Otherwise you're going to block your scope. You won't be able to see a target. So the trick here is to build some kind of support on the rear of your rifle, and it's about gear management. You just want to get in a position faster, quick, make sure you just get shots on target. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of my bipod. It's not going to help me any. This is how the position would look like. We'll use a pump bellow for rear support. We could use steps to get our elbows planted in there. That does make it for a good solid position. We got rear support, our elbows got support. To transfer into the other stairs, do the same thing, except you're gonna have to be seated. You can use your foot as support. That makes it a pretty good, stable position. Shooting from the bottom, we're just going to use a pump pillow for rear support. Elbows on the ground, square to the gun. We got another challenging stage here. Let me show you. We got this tire that just hangs on a couple chains. It swings back and forth. It doesn't offer a lot of support for your rifle. So it's pretty challenging. There's a couple tricks that we could use to support ourselves, the rifle, to make an accurate shot. This position is going to depend how well you can stabilize yourself. So I'd get in here. My rifle's going to go on the tire. I'm going to lean against any support I can, anything that's going to offer me any support. Another thing that's going to offer us a little bit of support, when you put your mag in and you slide your rifle forward, that mag on the tire offers just a little bit of that extra stability that you need to make a shot on a small target. When you're shooting from small places, confined places where it's nice and tight, use that to your advantage. Over here I got this 2x. I could use that to support my elbow, and that just offers a little more stability. Just like I'm using this to support myself. Use this for your elbow, and that makes it a pretty stable position. Time starts now. In planning stages of shooting the tank trap, what I plan is, and usually you'll see that at a match, they'll have you shoot from 3 different positions, usually from the center of the tank trap, from one of the tips, and then they'll have you shoot off of one of the slope legs of the tank trap. And there's a couple of tricks and a bag that we employ to make that happen, make an accurate shot off of it. To get in the position to shoot from the center of the tank trap, the rifle will be on the bag. This is going to be your kneeling position. I like to run my hand on top of the scope to support the rifle. It gives you a little bit of right and left with your hand. You just get behind the rifle. That offers a really good, stable shooting position. We'll go to the tip of the tank trap. You want to use some kind of bag or a backpack to give you a little bit of a stability on that tip. We'll set the rifle on top of the bag. We'll start squaring up on the rifle. I'll lock my knees out and just lean into the rifle. Hand on top of the scope. Knees locked out, square to the rifle. That offers a really stable position. To shoot off of one of the slope legs of the tank trap, it gets a little trickier, but you just set that bag. It's going to be a kneeling position. You can control the elevation with this hand. I'll usually grip the tank trap, and that will also support the bag, and it'll kind of stop it at the elevation that I need. I could use my elbow for knee support, or off a knee support, and this makes it a pretty stable position too. Time starts now. This is a typical prone position. You have to understand that during the match, you won't get a lot of time to build that position perfect, but you have to make sure your fundamentals are there. So practice that. Get in a position fast. Create a wide base. Get behind the rifle. Make sure your elbows are on the ground. Make sure you're straight behind the gun. Build that position fast. Let's take a couple shots from that position. Recoil management is everything in this position. You want to make sure you stay on target, stay on the rifle, spot your shot, whether it's an impact or a miss, so you can make a correction. We're going to talk about standing, kneeling, and sitting position. It's all offhand. Some of the matches don't allow any kind of support, bags, so it's just going to be you and the rifle. And I'm going to show you how I do to build that position and make an accurate shot. For standing, I'll place my feet facing 90 degrees to the target, about shoulder width. I'm going to take my left hand and I'm going to run it on my hip as much as I can and have that hip support my hand. It'd be as such. And I'm going to start above the target and I'm going to slowly come down on the target. Close the bolt. Pull the trigger. Next one is going to be a kneeling position. You're just going to go kneeling. I'm going to lay my right foot flat and I'm just going to sit right on it. My right foot flat, my bottom sitting right on the foot. Now I'm going to bring my left knee up, run my left elbow on my knee as a support. This left hand's going to support most of your rifle, but it is supported by the knee. Close the bolt. Start above the target. Make a shot, recover, run the bolt. This thus makes it a pretty stable position. It's always a good idea to support bone on bone when you go elbow on your knee. For sitting position, you're just going to go ahead and sit on your bottom. I'm going to run my left foot all the way underneath my right foot. Likewise, the right foot underneath my left to get my knees support for my elbows. And then I'm going to run my elbows on my knees. And I got my left foot supporting this elbow, my right foot supporting this elbow. So my elbows are all supported, bone on bone. I'm going to go ahead and close the bolt. Start above the target. Run the bolt. That makes it a pretty stable position. There's another way to shoot standing, kneeling, and sitting, and that's using a sling. I use a bungee sling. It's got a little bit of a bungee motion, so it kind of tightens up the rifle. You don't have to have it perfectly adjusted. This bungee will kind of let it get into position. So let me demonstrate how you use a sling. Wrap your hand around the sling. As you go up, the sling is going to tighten up everything. It's going to pull that rifle into your shoulder. As you come down, you bring your elbow in, and that tightens up the sling. For kneeling position, we're going to sit on the foot. That elbow being in front of the sling, when you put it on your knee and you bring it over, it's going to tighten up everything. It's going to tighten up the sling around your neck, and that's going to support the rifle. Same thing, you're going to rest your elbow on your knee. The sling's just going to help you stabilize it a little better. For sit position, same thing. You're going to bring your left foot underneath your right foot underneath the left. When you bring your elbow and put it on your knee, that sling is going to tighten up everything. It's going to pull the gun back into your shoulder. It's going to make a pretty stable position. You got this elbow on your knee, and the sling pulling back. Makes it a nice position. This is a typical PRS positional barricade. It's kind of a time event. It's used for tiebreakers. So what you want to make sure that you're very, very efficient time-wise on this. Get in and out of positions fast. There's typically 4 positions. Be 1, 2, 3, 4. Usually it's a 90-second event. So you got to be able to get in there, 2 shots from each position, get in there and be efficient with time. Usually get only 90 seconds to complete that whole stage. I got a couple of tips, and I'm going to show you a couple of things that I do to get through it and get hits on target. To get in position 1, Throw my bag down. My rifle goes on top of the bag. Typical kneeling position. Elbow's gonna go on your knee. Make sure your butt is on your foot. Don't use any muscle to support yourself. I usually run hand on top of the scope. It's a pretty stable position. Recoil management is really good because you're behind the rifle. Get in position 2. Throw it back up here. Rifle goes on top of the bag. Square behind the rifle. I'll lock my knees out, lean into the gun, close the bolt. That's pretty good and stable position. This is standing position. Square to the gun, lock your knees out. Rifle goes on top of the bag, hand top of the scope. Recoil management. Moving to the last position. Rifle on top of the bag is going to be a kneeling position. Remember your elbow support. Your foot supports the bottom. Close the bolt. Very stable position. Make sure you support bone to bone. Time starts now. This is a typical shoot house that you'll see at all the matches, or some of the matches, most of the matches, but they utilize many different positions, but you'll see at least 4 different positions. They could be prone, they could be sitting, kneeling, you could be standing up on top. There's a lot of movement. There's absolutely needs to be a good gear management. You don't leave nothing behind, but you don't take too much extra. So you gotta fit in some tight places, and you gotta do it under time. So gear management is important on this one, especially. We're going to show you a couple different positions, how we shoot it, and what I will do to make sure I get through it and don't time out. Since we're not going to shoot prone, I'm just going to go ahead and take my bipod off. All that's going to do is just hinder your ability to get into these tight ports. My position number 1 is going to be, I'm going to sit. I'm going to use these supports to lean on them. I'm going to support my elbow off my knee and make a shot that way. We have to move, make sure your bolt is back, muzzle down range. You get into the position number 2. This is going to be a typical kneeling position. From here, we'll go up the top. We're going to use a bag on this one. Square up behind the rifle. Hand on top of the scope. This is a pretty stable position. Last position, we're going to go off the tire. And throw a bag. We're going to square up as much as we can. Lean into the gun. Use the support for your elbow. Very stable position. Before our roll calls time starts now, he's going to ask you if your shooter's ready. This is the time to make sure your mag is in, your dope is dialed, caps are open. Make sure your rifle is ready for the stage. Time starts now. We'll put our elbow on this, use it as support. Don't close your bolt till you're on target. When we're on target, we'll take a shot. We're at the rooftop stage, and even though there's a couple of different ways of shooting the rooftop, it all depends on the angle of the rooftop. By far my favorite way to shoot it is I put my rifle forearm on the edge of the rooftop and I use a bag for rear support. If the rooftop gets a little steeper, you may not have enough of rear support. In that case, I'll just run a reezer bag on the edge. My rifle will just ride the bag as such, and that's if the rooftop is steep. Let me just show you how I shoot it. When I shoot a rooftop, I just take a bigger rear bag for rear support. I do leave my bipod on, and the reason for that is I hook it on the edge of the roof, and that just gives me something to, if I start sliding off, it just gives me some kind of support so I don't slide off with the rifle. You put a bag behind, you kind of kneel behind the rifle, straight behind the rifle, and this makes it a very stable position. I got rear support, my rifle supported by the edge of the rooftop. I got bipod there to keep me from sliding backwards. I'm ready to go. Time starts now. Sooner or later, you'll run into a position where you have to shoot off a slope. You'll be on a slope hillside. You have to shoot at a target straight away. This is pretty good position. I utilize a taller bipod, palm pillow in the back. It looks like this, and then I hook my feet to keep the bipod from sliding. I hook my feet into the bipod. I can make a pretty accurate shot in this position. My elbow supported by the pillow. I got some support off this knee. It feels pretty good, very stable. If you're on the hillside and you got to shoot uphill at a target that's located uphill, another position that I utilize pretty often, especially in the field matches, is I'll lay back, use the bag for rear support, make a shot from this position. I have a pretty good angle. I'm located on the slope and I can shoot uphill. Very good and stable position. I can make a pretty long shot from this position. There's another way of shooting from a slope rooftop or a slope hillside is utilize a tripod. The tip using a tripod is you want to make sure that you got one leg forward and the two supporting legs aren't facing towards the shooter. And the reason for that is you want to have a room for that gun to recoil back. If you have a leg straight back, that recoil is not going to be straight back. It's going to be off to the side. So 2 legs back, 1 leg forward. Using the pump pillow to build a little bit of position in the back for rear support. I can make pretty accurate shots using the tripod. If you're shooting from a really steep hillside, you got some snow or mud and the tripod wants to slide on you, another thing I'll do is I'll have it hooked up with my feet. I'll hook up the right foot on this leg and this foot will hook up this leg. I'll use the bipod and just slightly give it a pull back into my shoulder, and that way the tripod stays put when I shoot, and during recoil it won't slide away from me. Another position that you'll run into is you have to shoot 90 degrees to the slope of the rooftop. What I do is on my bipod, I'll run one of the legs short I can, the other one's gonna go long I can, just to give me a level platform on the slope rooftop. Using a bigger pump pillow, elbow is gonna connect on the rooftop. You got pump pillow for rear support. I'm ready to go. Time starts now. Tripod is a pretty important tool in my backpack when I go to a match. If you have to shoot over tall grass or a tall obstacle, you can use the tripod to shoot standing. There's a couple of tricks that I can show you to make it easier to shoot from a tall tripod standing. You want those two legs to come back towards you. You want to allow for a recoil. You don't want that single leg coming back because that recoil is not going to be straight back. When I use the tripod standing shooting, I square up to the gun, keep my knees locked out, just slight lean into the gun. I do use the front bipod just to give it a little pull back into my shoulder. Another reason why I like to grab my bipod on the front, it creates that triangle between me and the rifle, minimizes right or left wobble. It's pretty solid if I grip on the bipod as such. Last thing is shooting from a tripod standing is if you're crunching under time, you got to set it up fast. You don't really know what kind of elevation you need it at. I set it up to where the top of the hog saddle is about chest high. What that gives me, it's just I have to bend so slightly into the gun. I don't have to use muscle to support my back. My knees are locked out, legs are spread about shoulder width. I get in the gun, I'm ready to go. You know, you can use the tripod standing, kneeling, sitting, shooting on the hillside, on the slope, rooftop. Another one I wanted to show you is how you can use the tripod. Is if you got to shoot over an obstacle or short wall or short support of some sort, is to use one of the legs of the tripod as a rear support. Let me show you how. This will be a kneeling position. I'll grab one of those legs of my tripod, grip it with my thumb against the leg. My bipods are extended out. I'm high off the ground. I can get over an obstacle, but my rear support is solid with the tripod. You can also control your elevation. You can pan a little bit right, left. You got flexibility with it. If you shoot matches, sooner or later you'll have to shoot from a vehicle or a truck. A couple of positions that they utilize shooting from a truck is shooting from a door when the door is open. Sometimes they'll put you inside of the truck, close the door, and you'll have to shoot from a door when it's closed. Or you'll have to climb in the bed of the truck and shoot off the bed of the rail of the bed. We're going to show you a couple positions and what gear I use to make that shot. Shooting from an open door, if you just support your rifle from the door, it's going to be a hard position to make a shot. We could use some kind of bag just to build up that platform, make it a little wider. You can lean on the seat, get into the rifle, and that's a good position right over here. If you just try standing, it gets a little wobbly. I do lean on the door out a little bit, push it out to the limits. With my butt on the seat, I'm ready to go. Shooting from the inside of the car or a truck when the door is closed is, I'll usually utilize the mirror. Just gives me a little more elevation. I'll still have a bag here to support my rifle. Most of your support's going to come from back here, your elbow being on the door, or maybe you run a little back underneath the buttstock. The position looks like this. You don't do anything specific with your feet. You just sit on the seat, lean on the door. Your support mostly comes from the door, your elbow, your hand, or arm being on the door. Shooting from the inside of the truck, it's going to be a pretty small confined space, so you don't want to take an extra gear. Just take exactly what you need. Manage that gear very good. You don't have a lot of room in there to put backpacks and all kinds of bags. I usually take one bag. My time starts now. We're at the stage where a match director is trying to simulate a stump. We've got a tall grass, we've got to engage a target out there. So we're gonna have to get up a little higher. We don't have a tripod or bipod, we're hunting. So the way we're gonna shoot off of a stump, I'm gonna lay my bag, create a little better platform, a little bigger platform. I'm just gonna kneel down, support my elbow with my knee, get my butt on my foot, on my left foot. I'm just gonna get comfortable. And that feels pretty good to take a shot. My time starts now. We've got to get in position. We're under time, we've got to make a shot. Gonna make another shot. Shooting from a rounded surface such as this big old pipe, I would not use a bipod. I'd rather use a bag. Let me show you why. If you use a bipod and you have a magazine in, you're trying to engage a target, your magazine is going to run into the pipe, not giving you a very good support. So you're going to be floating on top of the magazine. What I would do is I'd get rid of the bipod or fold it forward. Using the bag lets you pan over, engage one target. You can pan over, engage another target, and it's a very solid position. Elbow on your knee, if I'm going to shoot straight out. If I'm going to pan over and shoot at a target angled to the left or right of the pipe, I'm going to run my elbow and support it off the pipe as such. That offers me a very good rear support. I can make accurate shots with this. Time starts now. I get over to the pipe, set the bag, set the rifle, pan over to my target, elbow on the pipe. At this stage, we've got a tire that's just laying flat. We have to engage some targets out there. So we're gonna try to get in a position, use a rear bag for rear support, bipod on the front. Let me show you how. We've got the bipod out. We're gonna extend it out a little bit. Set it over here. Gonna use the rear bag. Make it very solid position. We're going to try to get into position pretty fast. This might be a part of a stage, so last position of the stage, we're going to try to make a quick shot. So my time starts now. We want to thank you for joining us for this precision rifle training. I hope that you found it helpful to further your shooter skill. Today we showed you what it takes to shoot from improvised position and what gear we use to stabilize yourself. Ultimately, it's up to you to get out, invest into your training, invest time, get out, dry fire, and practice more. I'll see you at the next match, and remember, the miss is not an option. So today we're in my reloading room. This is where all the reloading, all the magic happens. I'm going to talk to you today about the equipment, the components that I use to make my competition loads. The two popular cartridges in the PRS shooting or any match shooting is a 6.5mm and a 6mm. I personally chose a 6mm. I choose a 6x47 or a 6XC. And the reason for that is because of its amazing ballistics and its ability to cut through the wind. We have a 6XC on the right and 6x47 on the left. They're very similar and their ballistics are very similar also. I want to show you the components that I use to put my competition load together. So I use a 6.5x47 brass. I neck it down to a 6mm to make it 6x47. I use CCI 450 primers. The new Nosler RDF bullet because of its amazing ballistic coefficient. I use a Redding 6x47 full-size die. For this case, I chose H4350 powder. Some people choose Varget. I think this is a more popular powder. Right now I'm going to show you the process that I use to put the cases and the bullets together. So when I get back from a match, I use a Frankfurt Arsenal to clean the brass. And then I throw it in some kind of dehydrator to dry it up. It goes through my resizing die. I push the shoulder a couple thousandths back, make sure it all fits. And then I use my Girard trimmer to trim, deburr, and chamfer all my cases. And then all that seat the primer, drop the powder, and load the bullet. So the fundamentals of reloading is what I call 2 C's. It's got to be concentricity and consistency. You got to be consistent and your load's got to be concentric. There are many ways of cleaning brass, there's many ways of trimming brass and dropping powder, but the name of the game is consistency. So right now I want to talk to you about how I develop a load for a brand new case that I'm not familiar with. So let's take, for example, a 6x47. So I know the velocity that I want to be at 3,000 or 3,020, somewhere in there. So I'll take 8 or 10 cases. I'll start at the lowest recommended loading, and I'll load half a grain increment increasing, and I'll shoot them through a chronograph, and I'll see what grain gives me the velocity that I want to be, and then I'll develop my load around that grain just to get that velocity that I like. And you know, I might increase half a grain, I might decrease half a grain, just to stay within the safe velocity for travel and different environmental conditions. So the question comes up is, how accurate of a rifle do you need to compete in PRS or any tactical matches? And the answer to that is my personal, and this is what I do for me, is it's acceptable for me to shoot half MOA. Right now I want to share some of the tips and tricks that I use in my reloading procedure. The bullets that I used to shoot, I used to tip them. So tipping a bullet, what that means is you use a special die or a tipping die to close the tip of the bullet. And so you just close up that tip of the bullet,
improves your ballistic coefficient by 7 to 10%, and also makes the noses of the bullets consistent. So when I seat a bullet into my case, what I pay attention to is the force or the pressure that it takes to seat the bullet. And that's what it's called, the neck tension. So I pay attention to the neck tension and make sure my bullets all are seating with the same pressure or same force on the handle. That helps your cases be all consistent, and you will get a good spread in your velocity. I personally don't turn necks for the name of the game that I play. As long as my bullets are seating with the same neck tension, with the same pressure, and if I check them on the concentricity gauge and my bullets all concentric to the center of the case, I don't feel there's a need to turn necks. Another tip to be consistent with your reloads is to identify and mark your brass before you go to a match. You don't want to come back from a match and bring somebody else's brass and try to reload, because that's not how you stay consistent. So how I mark my cases is I just put a little mark to identify which is my case and make sure I take that case home with me. My personal opinion on the barrel break-in is if you buy a quality hand-lap barrel that doesn't have any machining tool marks or any kind of marks on the lands or grooves, it does not need a specific barrel break-in. So I just take my barrel, I shoot 50-60 rounds through it, maybe develop a load, shoot 50-60 more rounds. I try not to take a barrel or a rifle to a match that has less than 150 rounds. What I do to make sure my loads are all consistent is I stretch them out to a distance. I think that's just going to be the final word, whether your loads are consistent or not. So I'll shoot a couple groups at 1,000 yards and make sure I don't have any vertical depression, make sure my velocity is consistent, my loads are consistent, and then you should be able to get really nice groups if you stay consistent throughout your reloading process. One important aspect of your match shooting and competition career is having a good gunsmith and having a good relationship with your gunsmith. I'm lucky in that sense because he's right next door to me. This man right here, I trust him with my life because he builds all my guns from ground up. And the tip of the day is don't piss off your gunsmith because he can make your life miserable.
And my part of it, building guns all my life, having a shooter of Nick's ability that can push my barrels to the limit and experiment with different loads, and I've learned a lot just by having a quality shooter like Nick shoot my barrels. So we've learned from each other and we've gained a lot of ground on this PRS shooting. And thanks to people like Nick and the PRS, we've come a long ways in the gunsmith world.